new door to bigger and better accomplishments, better health and more happiness than ever before, you'd probably be interested, wouldn't you? That's very underwhelming.
Absolutely.
Good for you. Because this morning we're going to talk about truly opening a new door in your life. And we're going to talk about the most important person in your life. You. You're right, you. We're talking the most important person in your life, you. And to help us in that discussion, we're going to use this chart in the front of the room. I have to excuse all the wrinkles. It's been folded up in the back of my car for a while. And on this chart is a lot of scientific information concerning you and I. Let me give you some handout material. Sure. Sharon, would you just give some handout material to whoever else comes in? Here's some pencils. So on this chart in front of the room is really a lot of information concerning our brain, our mind, and why we are the way we are. Each one of us. You notice the four various colored bands, and they're beta the area in blue, alpha the area in green, theta the area in red, delta the area in black. And these are just simply bands of frequencies that we each experience each and every day and night of our lives. And so we're going to spend time discussing these levels and how these levels of brain function affect our lives. For example, since we're all adults, I know right now, since everyone in here is an adult, no one's asleep, no one's meditating, your eyes are open, so brain frequency-wise, I know you're functioning somewhere in beta. Beta extends from 14 to about, on the average, about 21 cycles per second. It's where we spend all of our time during the day when we're awake. At night, we sleep in alpha, in theta, and in delta. But the only place we're conscious is in beta, where we're aware of the outer conscious level. These we call them the outer conscious levels of brain function, and we're aware of what the outer world. We're aware of the outer world by way of our senses of sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. What do we know about beta scientifically? Well, it's a world of action. We know that the voltage levels in beta are very, very small, very minute. Voltage levels in beta vary from about 0.2 to 0.5, 0.6 microvolts, millionths of a volt. So it's a very, very minute brain wave that we're generating right now. In fact, the higher we go brain frequency-wise, the weaker the voltage levels, the more erratic the brain waves, and the less control we have over our mind, our brain, and our body. Or to say it another way, well, how do you get into higher levels of beta? By becoming tense. Now, how do you become tense? Oh, insight.
Work.
Work? What about people who like their work? So, all of those are your human reactions. It's like pain. Well, let me say first of all, we'll have a formal question and answer period later, okay? So hold your questions till the end because I may answer the question. But it's kind of like pain, the word pain. What is pain? Pain is a label. Pain's a label, pain's a word. It's not any one thing, you can't define it. It's just a discomfort of some sort. It's like work. Work is an activity. Why would work make you tense? Only because of the way you look at work. I submit. Does that make sense? I mean, people who enjoy their work, they're in joy. They're having fun. So we need to be able to distinguish between what is and what is not. What we're talking about, I just, as an aside, let me say right now, we're going to end up discussing metaphysics a bit. The father of metaphysics is Dr. William James, also called the father of American psychology. William James said, metaphysics is the practice of only the sharpest, most critical thinking. Sharp, critical, analytical thinking, the ability to discriminate and not get confused by words and opinions and personal judgments. We need to learn to lay those aside so that we can begin to understand what's going on. So, the higher we go brain frequency-wise, we were saying, the weaker the voltage level, the more erratic the brain wave, and the less control we have over mind, brain, and body. How do we get tense? Well, sometimes due to the things we eat or drink. Would you agree with me that drinking coffee causes us to become tense? Absolutely. So drinking coffee, caffeinated drinks causes us to become tense. All of those drive us into higher levels of beta where we have less control over mind, brain, and body. Would you agree that negative emotions cause us to become tense? Negative emotions like what? I've asked groups this, and it's always an interesting question because if we started talking about and listing negative emotions, we could have a list that would go on and on and on and on. And if I ask you to start listing positive emotions after 7, 8, or 9, guess what? We'd run out of words, wouldn't we? So we tend to know more about negative emotions than we do positive emotions. In fact, we tend to be more of a negative culture than a positive culture. And if we're not careful, we can allow the newspapers, the news especially, and TV to just really put us in a tither. And the kinds of music we listen to all have an impact on us. I mean, things like acid rock music has a horrid influence on your person. And it causes an enfrainment of your brain. And it can take hours to overcome the effect of that. I mean, it's worse than watching TV programs about murder and all kinds of, really violent things. So, the higher we go brain frequency-wise, the less control we have over mind, brain, and body. And the deeper we go, the stronger the brain wave, and the more control we have over mind, brain, and body. And so as we begin to relax, as we begin to discover more about our brain waves, when you relax enough that if we had an EEG on, I should have started at the first and said, we're imagining we have an EEG on each of us, an electroencephalograph that measures brain waves. Okay, this is how all of this was discovered, was through brainwave research. And they find that when we relax enough so that we dip below the 14 cycle point, the scientists tell us you're now functioning in alpha, the area in green. Alpha extends from 7 to 14 cycles a second. It's much deeper than beta. It's a world that's primarily reserved for sleeping. The average adult can't function in alpha consciously. All they can do here is sleep. Unless they're an experienced long-term meditator or a graduate of the Silva method, which I've taught for 40 years here in Corpus. So, alpha extends from 7 to 14 cycles a second. We call it an inner conscious level. We think of it as a spiritual world. We didn't say religious, we said a spiritual world, because we're dealing here with thoughts, with ideas in our consciousness. It's where we have awareness of no time or space. Have you ever laid down to take a nap, maybe sleep 10 or 15 minutes, and suddenly awake and say, oh my God, how long have I been asleep? I feel like I slept for an hour, and it was just 10 or 15 minutes. There's an altered awareness of time and space in alpha and in theta. In alpha and theta is where all ESP occurs. All psychic functioning, not in beta, not in delta, but in alpha or in theta. When we say ESP in the Silva method, we don't mean extra sensory perception. The phrase is misleading, inaccurate, and untrue. First of all, psychic senses are not extra senses. Everybody has psychic abilities, especially once they learn to function in alpha and theta. Okay? The key is what channel you're on, what frequency you're on. There's ABC, channel 3, channel 6, channel 10, UHF, channel 16. But non-meditators, non-Silva people haven't learned to change frequencies yet. So that's what we're talking about, learning to change frequencies, actually change the amount of tension you have in your body, so you can learn to get rid of tension and anxiety, boom, like that. Relax profoundly. Turn on your psychic abilities if you need to. Okay? What else do we know about alpha and theta? Well, first I'd like to say there's a very special place within alpha. And Jose Silva says it's at 10.5 cycles. Later, other scientists using EEG research said no, it's 10.5 cycles. They said, Jose says 10.5 cycles. They say no, it's 10 cycles. And Jose said,